Singapore has executed its first woman in almost 20 years. Saridewi Djamani was hanged on Friday after 4 years on death row for trafficking just 30 grams of heroin. The 45-year-old is the second person to be hanged this week in Singapore, and the 15th since the government resumed executions in March last year after a 2-year hiatus during the pandemic. Singapore has some of the harshest drug laws worldwide, with the death penalty imposed on any offender found trafficking more than half a kilo of cannabis or 15 grams of heroin. Adam has reported extensively on this issue from the city-state. He tells us more from Sydney.
Prisoner executions are not uncommon in Singapore. Last year alone, 11 men were hanged by the state. But this week, there's been a renewed focus on the city-state's use of the death penalty because a woman has been executed, something that's very rare in Singapore. 45-year-old Saridewi Djamani was sentenced to death in 2018. She was charged with possession of 30 grams of heroin for the purpose of trafficking. Human rights groups have been outraged by this case. This tweet is from the Capital Punishment Justice Project, reacting to the news of 2 executions this week. They said, horrifying news from Singapore. This would mark 15 executions for drug convictions since 30th of March 2022 and see the first woman executed in Singapore in almost 20 years. Last year, only Singapore, China, Iran and Saudi Arabia executed people for drug offences, according to Amnesty. We understand before this execution that there were 2 women on death row in Singapore. And given some of the outcry about this case because a woman has been executed, could it lead to any change of Singapore's stance on the death penalty? Well, here's one expert with her opinion.
The execution of women has often captured the imagination of people to support death penalty abolition. For example, in the UK, the execution of Ruth Ellis helped strengthen the abolition movement in the country. In the US, the recent execution of Lisa Montgomery caused public outcry when details about gender-based violence and bias that led to her death sentence were exposed.
For now, though, the executions keep coming. This is from the activist group, the Transformative Justice Collective. They understand that another execution notice has been delivered for a Singaporean Malay man who was a former delivery driver. For now, the Singapore government shows no signs of changing their stance on the death penalty. They claim that it's an effective deterrent against drug-related crimes and ensures the safety of Singapore citizens. So we can expect more executions and more of these stories.